last session, and you will have your wonderful teacher back next week. Now, here is, I'm passing out a summary of what we did last week. If any of you need the part about just reasons for going to war, I have a few copies of that. But this is what we did last week. Barbara, would you just grab one and pass it? Now, today, we're going to do two things. One is we're going to review, and I'm changing my battle plan for the lesson because of the situation we're in.
There you go.
We're going to deal with just peace, just conduct after the war is ended, or in negotiations to end war. And then we're going to apply what we have, what we've been talking about, to our personal living. Because, like all Christian understanding, you don't decide on your right actions on the spur of the moment in a situation. You must have your understanding of what your role is internalized before you're in the situation, or you won't act that way. It's like learning to play the bells. I tried. I came in, I know music. I know what the notes tell me. I tried. I was awful. Now, if I came back under all of you bell ringers' tutelage and camaraderie and Lucy's instruction, give me 8 practices, I probably could be a reasonable bell ringer. Reasonable. But if I don't, if I just get up there this morning to substitute because you need the big bell and somebody didn't show up, it would be a really mess. Could not happen. Now, notice I said something else. With your tutelage and camaraderie, just war understanding is something that Christians cannot do alone. You can't act this way consistently and well by yourself for 2 reasons. One, you don't have all the knowledge necessary. Even the President of the United States needs people who will be honest with him or her and deal with these conditions well and advise them. The second thing is that you need a corrective, because when we are angry, when we feel hurt, when we have been attacked, we will reason to retaliate violently or semi-violently as our first option, not our last, if we don't have a community to correct us and support us and continually teach us. So this is an understanding. What we've been talking about is an understanding in community, and specifically in Christian community. It's not just a checklist. Okay? Now, let's begin.
Because we had a couple of people came in after we handed out.
Okay, I don't know where the,
Hold your hand up and I'll give you, if you give me some.
let's see. Let's see, during hostilities. Who's got the hostilities? There's one. And
Yes, they're back here. Here's back.
it's back. Okay, but y'all make sure that somebody, no, there's some back there. I don't have any more. There are some more here. Here's what we're trying to get. Here it is. Here it is. Chest. Okay. Now, let's begin. Let's begin with prayer. And I'll ask you to pray with me. Lord, thank you for leading us in hard paths. Give us the wisdom, the commitment, the love, the patience to live faithfully as disciples of the risen Christ, in whose name we pray. Amen. Now, is there anything that you want to briefly discuss about what is on the paper that you just got, which is the conduct during the war? We covered that, but you may have some questions that we didn't cover. All right. Now, I'm going to pass out a third sheet. Actually, I'm going to do that later because of where we are and what we're doing. You may have seen that the president of Ukraine was asked a question this week. Is this going to be decided, this war going to be dealt with on the battlefield? Or is negotiation, or peace talks possible? Some of you may have seen that. Anybody remember what he said?
I think he said it would be settled by diplomacy.
Huh?
I think he said it would be settled by diplomacy. That was the headline this morning.
Exactly. He said it would be won on the battlefield, but settled, dealt by diplomacy. And he added one more thing. He said, and that will be hard.
Yes.
That will be hard. Unsaid was, because the stated understandings repeatedly have been violated. And so we don't have a base for negotiation. We have to create the base as we are negotiating. So
the aggressor in this situation doesn't seem to be very diplomatic, and he's not following the rules.
exactly. And yet, the president of Ukraine says, we have to sit down at the table with these people we don't trust.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, so, how do you, what rules or what considerations do we need to live by as we are negotiating with our enemy? Whether it is a nation, or in the paper this morning, there was a fun article about a woman who was taking her daughter to Duke and rented a truck. Somebody may have seen that. If you haven't, it's worth the effort to get the paper. She had done all the right things. She had a reservation for a truck. She got to thinly disguised, in the paper, atheist. And they said, well, we don't have a truck. But I have a reservation. No, you don't have this special kind of reservation that would have guaranteed you the truck. You have a cheap reservation. And that is if we haven't sent the truck somewhere else. Well, she was rightly angry. She hit the ceiling.
I would have too.
She didn't get her truck. She went to rent-a-wreck, thinly disguised, did the same thing. Had a slightly better experience. There was a woman at the debt counter with, you've seen, or you may be experienced trying to shake hands with a woman with nails 2 inches long. That was the counter person. And the counter person did not want to give her the truck for the price that had been agreed on. Well, the manager told the woman, and of course she hit the steering to the customer. The manager told the woman that, yes, you have to give her this price. So the woman gave her the dirtiest, nastiest truck she had. And she did get her daughter to me, but both the counter people and the customer broke every rule of just war. And you and I do it too. Okay? Now, according to just war, call it tradition, or call it discipline, which I prefer. If you are going to end a war, there must be an ethical reason to end the war. Some questions. Did the countries or people affected apologize, surrender, negotiate terms, promise not to seek revenge? If those are not present, you're not likely to have a just peace. Or the terms of surrender proportional to the wrongs done? if there is not some way, for example, that Russia contributes to restoring the totally destroyed cities into Ukraine, or if Ukraine is simply carved up by Russia as it pleases, as we did after World War II in the Middle East, you're not likely to have a just peace, and you're likely to have a cause for more war. Has the declaration of peace been made and accepted by the proper authorities? Or do the people talking have the power to make peace? If not, your agreement isn't going to matter. Okay? So there has to be an ethical reason for ending the war. Second, the principle should be, I'm quoting, universalizable and morally ordered. The victory should not provide a license for unduly harsh or punitive measures. I've got a junkyard dog, you've got a junkyard dog for a lawyer. We are in divorce proceedings. It has been determined that I have the legal right to deprive you and our children of a place to live. Because the law says you were at fault. We know better. But the law says you. Whoa. Is that just? Or is my taking that and putting it into the contract an unduly harsh and punitive measure to deal with my feeling of hurt?
That's unduly harsh.
Huh?
That's unduly harsh.
All right. If so, you're not likely to have just for a lasting peace.
Don't you think that's like using your power?
Yes.
Just because you have the power?
Yes.
And that's going on all over this country, all over the world.
Yes. You got it. Also, commercial interest should not dictate the form of the new peace. I want access to oil that I don't have. Therefore, I will impose into the peace the condition that American companies extract the oil from the defeated country. Just war theory says no. And that's in line with the conducting of war and how you go to war. See, imposing that violates one of the principles of going to war. All right. I'll give you some quick examples, and I know I promise I'm going to let y'all talk in just a minute, but I'm trying to adjust to our situation here. Which for anybody who's listening in or watching in, we're in the sanctuary because we had a wonderful trash and treasure sale yesterday, And we needed to move into the sanctuary for our class, and that changes the way that we have to deal. Okay. So, I think I've mentioned these two. An unduly harsh peace after World War I. We didn't only cause Germany and the German allies to make just reparations, but we made it impossible for Germany to survive economically well. Result, Hitler. Marshall Plan, good example. Good example after World War II. And as I mentioned before, the carving up of the Middle East and Eastern Europe. Bad example. Okay? Now, I'm going to pass these out to you, and we'll talk about this some more as you wish. Anything else about just peace that you want to talk about? Yes.
So I think one of the best examples of modern just peace is the shift from apartheid South Africa to the modern day sort of structure. Granted, there's still a lot of social stigma and economic divide. But Robben Island, which is the prison in which Nelson Mandela was held, is really making efforts for just peace. I actually got to visit there in 2018. And what they're doing now is prisoners and guards that was once held there are now working the museum and have free housing on the island and are provided free food on the island. And they are sharing their story and in the honest truth of it. And they have therapists that come in weekly and do group therapy with the guards and with the inmates. And they are trying to make sure that the story is told and not in this pretty polished version, but in the real truth of it. And they're trying to share how they've come from that. So not only are they providing them with jobs and housing, but they're giving them the opportunity to expand education. They're sending them to college. They are making sure that they're not being silenced and that their pain is heard and how they've moved forward from it.
Yeah,
Who is responsible for that?
This is
The South African government is over the Robben Island Institute.
So here, the black South Africans had a right, or at least were naturally, their natural inclination, which many, many, many people across the world would have supported, would be to run the rascals literally out of the country, to put the leaders in jail and keep them there, or to execute them for war crimes, all of which occurred. Instead, Mandela and others decided, how do we build a new South Africa that is at peace with itself? That's what you're trying to do with a just peace, is to build a new situation where it is possible to live justly in peace. And they added something really important. The people who had been hurt the most were given the power to decide whether to forgive or not.
And what's kind of, I shouldn't say ironic, it's not a good word, but even now in the 2010s, they had this popping up of like the Rastafarian religion and culture, which is very rooted in striking fast and sort of just, I hate to say violent in the terms, but they very much are, it's a swift kind of justice that they're trying to bring instead of a just peace. And in the 2010s, the Rastafarian community was trying to get, I guess, retribution for what happened to their ancestors, this next generation, instead of trying to buy into the just peace theory.
Okay, I've got a fun thing, I hope, for you. I'm going to read you an imaginary situation. I'll ask you to put yourself in it, and we'll talk about what happened and how it could have been different, or was it just fine? And what are the considerations that you would want to deal with in relationship to this situation? How many of you have brothers or sisters? Well, most of you, not all of you. Substitute friends for brother and sisters. It'll work. Okay. So, your brother, sister's friend steals your sweatshirt, takes it out of your room, just walks in when you're not there and grabs it.
All right. You realize it's gone. There's no one else could have taken it. So the only way to deal with this is take it back. So you sneak into their room. It's recon.
And grab your hoodie back. And while you're looking, you find his or her candy stash. Secret candy stash. So you decide to grab the pocket a couple pieces of candy to teach them that they can't do that to you. It's retaliation, it's reparations. Okay? Now you got your hoodie back, you got a sweet treat, and maybe your sibling will learn, your friend will learn, not to steal your stuff. Tell me, is this according to the just war discipline? What about this is fair, unfair, and what alternatives would you propose, if any? Hello?
See, the flesh in me likes this plan.
Huh?
The little inner person in me that knows this is wrong likes this plan. But I'm also the kind of sibling that I wouldn't have taken the candy. I'd have left a note that said, "I know what you did," and just like tucked it in, no signature, nothing, just and just taken the sweatshirt back, and it would have been done.
Yeah, that would be my response too, but even though I've been here. I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that it was just as wrong to steal the candy as it was to steal the hoodie.
It is.
I mean, stealing is stealing.
Two wrongs make a right, right?
Only
So,
Okay, so let's stop just a second. I'll get to you, John, and I'll get right to you too. So the first issue is, could you have dealt with the larger situation? What was the larger issue here?
violation of space and privacy.
Trust.
yeah.
Huh?
Trust.
Space, violation of space, violation of privacy, violation of trust. You think? My sister, who stole my stuff, would have said, I didn't think you would mind. I was only going to use it this afternoon. And I was going to bring it back. She has said that.
What did you say? But you didn't ask.
And I didn't think you would mind. I didn't think I needed to ask. You're just such a wonderful brother. Now, so the first thing is, if you're going to have a just peace with your brother or sister or friend, you've got to establish mutually agreed upon understandings of what is and what is not allowed. Okay? What you did was to go directly to war. Okay? Now, John.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The first thing is, we're talking about, you went directly to war. My first thing is, I wouldn't have been in their room. They violated my space, and I'm going to violate their space? First thing you got to go to the person, and you might have right away gone to, oh, I didn't think you'd mind. Well, now you've got a chance to fix everything before anything even starts.
Yeah. Okay, you were going to say something.
Okay, I'm one of 6 children, and I had a sister who repeatedly I had the money, I had regular jobs when I was younger, so I had the money to go out and buy nice clothes. So she loved to raid my things and take my clothes. And I always just sort of looked the other way. I figured it's no big deal. And until she wore a brand new outfit I had never had on that did not fit her because she was always a little bit bigger than me. It was too tight for her. And she came, I didn't know she was going to wear it, and I was waiting downstairs for her date to pick her up.
Oh, no.
And she came walking down the stairs in my brand new outfit. And I said, you go back upstairs and you take that off. And I said it in front of her boyfriend. And my mother said, that's right, you go. And it would have been okay if she had accepted that, but my sister had a really bad temper. So when she got home that night, we shared a room and we shared a double bed, and I got kicked out of bed in the middle of the night. And so the next morning, I packed my stuff and moved downstairs with my younger sister. But there was no getting around. There was no arbitrating with my sister.
Okay, so what was the root that led to that problem?
Lack of disrespect.
Well,
Or lack of respect.
I let it escalate.
Huh?
I let it escalate till it was
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
You didn't say
It
anything.
is
I told
just
you, but-
as wrong
right.
to let a real problem go
Let it fester.
and let it fester. We all, well, not all, some people don't do that, but most of those folks tend to leap to war instead of simply confront. But confrontation is not a no-no. Confrontation is necessary.
That's exactly what my mother said. She
Okay,
said there's a
now-
time to be a peacemaker and there's a time to stand up for yourself.
Yes, now, I'm not criticizing, I'm using your example,
Okay, that's all right.
so I'm playing. What if you had said, oh, I need to talk with you in the other room? And you said, that dress is too small for you. In the course of the evening, it's going to get ruined. Please go back, and we'll talk about it later, but please go back and change your clothes, and I'll entertain your boyfriend. Unless your boyfriend. Now, that's the other thing. You try to take her boyfriend while she's gone. But
Man, that'd have gotten me in hot water.
She would have had a little revenge in the evening.
the real problem is you had given her tacit permission over a period of time. She thought she knew the rules.
She could get away, maybe.
Or what she could get away with. Either way, that's the rules. What you can and can't get away with, that's the rules. You change the rules. And so she was really upset at being embarrassed in front of her boyfriend and being embarrassed in front of your mother, and so forth. So the response, if you go back to just war theory, and I know she did the big problem, but what violation of the conduct of just war did you do?
She put up with it. She put up with it.
She's talking about what she did at the
That's
end.
one. You ignored previously a perfectly good reason to confront, not to go to war, but to initiate action against the hurt. The second thing, though, is the response, arguably, was out of proportion to the offense. You did more, your reaction fed the, and again, I'm playing, your reaction fed the war instead of leading to a just peace. Your objective, even in the middle of war, is to get to a just peace. And that's why we need each other. I'm having a real problem with my sister. Can you just listen to me and see where I'm going wrong, or where I can come up with some options, Christian friend? We need that. We need that.
You know, the interesting thing from all of this was I was always a doormat. I grew up letting everybody push me around, including my sister. The interesting thing was these kinds of incidents that happened, I began to develop more ability. But I ran into that problem when I was in a work situation. I had a bad situation. But one of the managers in the hospital was a friend of mine, and I asked him what to do. And he sent me to the library there to get some great material to read to try to understand how to deal with difficult people. So that's kind of what you're talking about.
Yes.
Eventually, I found someone that could give me some positive.
Okay, back to the hoodie.
Okay.
Anybody else? Yes.
I had a sister who was older, and she had a whole lot of clothes she saw in walking, so I borrowed some of her stuff sometimes, and when she found out that every time she said, yeah, you wore it today, you can have it. That's how she used it.
Okay. Anybody else? Now, that was a silly little example deliberately, but it addresses what we're talking about. How do we restore a just peace is always the reason we're going to war when we have to go to war. Because a just peace has been broken. And before you go to war, you try all the other options. If Mandela's people had found that the white previous rulers had instituted a guerrilla movement against the new government, he would have had to do something else, but not until he tried all the options. Okay, now, yep, go ahead.
And I might not be wording this correctly, but what are we supposed to do if there was never a just peace to begin with, and there was just sort of a just stalemate, or just kind of lingering thing, if that makes sense, where it's
A Cold War.
where like from the beginning you never really had this mutual respect from each other. It was just that you had to share this environment. You had to just not go to war, but there was no respect, if that makes sense.
Then your objective is different. You are moving to section 3, which by the way includes section 1 and 2, but you're moving immediately to how do I establish a just peace? What action can I take to establish a just peace? To create a just peace? Where am I contributing to the state of Cold War?
And if you appeal to a higher authority,
Yes,
it
if
takes
you appeal
public
to a
hearing.
higher authority.
But if they don't work, like the United Nations doesn't work
Yes.
sometimes.
Yes, very important.
And that's,
In all cases here, you've got to have the authority, the proper authority, approve your action. Now, Martin Luther King would say sometimes the proper authority won't deal with it, and therefore we deal with it another way. And he would be right. Malcolm X would say the same thing, but his solutions would be different. Okay, I want to show you, to read you something else. And I want to close with a little piece from Barack Obama's 2009 Nobel Prize speech. This is a book. I don't usually read books for women. I just don't. But Emily got this from her daughter. And of course, I stole it. Actually, I asked her if she was reading it and took it. But this woman is an incredible writer and her life experience is absolutely blows you away. Her name is Glennon Doyle, Doyle. This book is entitled Untamed. I'll give you a brief hit on her. She was a bulimic. She was a victim of bulimia when she was 10. She was promiscuous as a teenager because she wanted to please the boys. She was, and she learned how to please boys, but not to please herself because she never asked the question. She was an alcoholic. She was a drug addict. That got dealt with when she was married. And she had 3 children and had what she describes, her husband was a really good father and a good provider. He was also really promiscuous. And they...
The Girl Scouts are coming in. I think we've got a wrap. Sorry, I think we've got a wrap. The Girl Scouts are waiting outside.
Oh, they're waiting outside.
There's a whole group of people waiting to come into the sanctuary. I'm so sorry.
I'll finish this. But anyway, I'll finish this in just a second, and then we'll go to the Girl Scouts. No, I'm not going to take next Sunday. This is lasting long enough. I tell you what, I might begin next Sunday.
Yes.
But she met a woman that she was deeply in love with, and realized that what she had was a partnership, not a marriage. And she decided, I'm going, I understand. One thing. And so she and her husband agreed on a divorce, and I want to read you what that divorce was like. Then I will read you Barack Obama, and then we'll be through.
Okay.
We'll do that next week.
Thank you, Wiley. All right.
Okay, let's go.
What we're doing,
Just getting ready to go sit around for church.
what they're doing is stuff inside, they're taking it. You gotta keep your stuff, but I got it inside.
I can hear you, Ed.
They're taking the stuff inside.
Oh, no, it's the, after church. You can do it now. Yeah. Like the church is solid, and I was get out back at first, like, hide them somewhere. Hide them, stick them back somewhere.
Because I got some children with some giant boots.
Oh, good. Oh, you need to get those, Okay, good.
They're doing that there. I got some books back there.